One of the questions I get asked as a podcaster is, how do you listen to podcasts? For those of you that already know how to listen to podcasts, you think, what a crazy question. It's easy to listen to podcasts, but not everybody knows. For those of you that do know, you're probably one of those same types of people that understands how to use the 7 different remotes for the TV and the cable and the VCR and everything else. Does anybody use VCRs anymore? I don't think they do. People are listening to podcasts. That's what they're doing. I was one of those people. Not long ago, I didn't know how to listen to podcasts. I kind of stumbled on how to do it by accident, and I was very grateful that I got the opportunity to do that. It opened up a whole new world for me, and then I decided to start my own podcast. So people ask me, how do you listen to podcasts? Well, before I get into that real quick, I want to give you a couple reasons why you might want to listen to podcasts if you haven't. Number one, it's long-form content. Most of them are. Not all of them are. Some of them deliver information in bite-sized pieces. So there's a term floating around out there. I think it's called micro podcasts or something like that. It's just a fancy way of saying short podcasts, bite-sized information. But most podcasts are long-form content. And all that really means is that you get to an opportunity to dive deeper into information that maybe otherwise wouldn't get exposed to in the same way. The second thing that I like about podcasts, I think other people enjoy as well, is that you can listen to podcasts while you're doing something else. So instead of maybe listening to music all the time, you get to listen to something that's encouraging or educating or funny or whatever the case might be. Sometimes inspirational. There's inspirational podcasts out there. There's different podcasts that will teach all kinds of different things. The third thing that I think is fantastic about podcasts is that it's very personal, and you get to associate yourself with somebody that maybe thinks on a level that's a little bit higher than maybe some of the people that you normally hang around with. So it puts you in a crowd of people that you otherwise wouldn't be exposed to. So just a couple of good reasons there. Long-form content gives you better opportunity to get deep into content that you otherwise wouldn't get in other places. You can listen while you do other things, and it gives you the opportunity to hang out with people that you might not otherwise be able to hang out with and help you to hopefully grow in some way. I want to show you today 4 different ways that you can listen to podcasts. And there's all different podcasts have different things available. The easiest way I'm going to show you is with Apple Podcasts. I want to see if I can do this here without messing things up. This is a little tough for me to do. But you see that purple button right there? This is hard to do backwards. But if you push that purple podcast button on any Apple device, it's simple. It's just a purple button that says podcast. It's Apple Podcast Player. Just push that, and it's going to bring up all these different podcasts. And you can see over here, The Christopher Scott Show. That's my podcast. That's the most common way. You just push that button. There's a search feature in there. They have the top charts. If you know a podcast, you want to go in there, you can Google, search in there just like you would Google or anything else. So that's the Apple Podcast Player. If you're not on an Apple device, you can listen on Google Podcasts, which operates pretty much the same way. My favorite podcast player is something called Overcast, and that you would have to go download from the iTunes store, and it has a little orange everything. Oh, let me see if I can do that backwards. There it is, right there, the orange one. Trying to do this backwards is kind of tricky, but anyway, the Overcast app is my favorite app, and I think a favorite with a lot of podcasters, and I'll tell you why. And this is going to be even trickier to do backwards. But if you go to, say, my podcast, and see this here, you can go back and forth. Let me just go to it. Yeah, here it is. I don't know if you can see this on there real well. Try and get the light. Probably can't see it. I'm going to explain it to you. If you just move the image back and forth, the main image, and this works the same on an iPhone, you can do what's called Smart Feed, which eliminates the silences in the podcast. You can do a voice boost, which amplifies the sound a little bit, which is no big deal. I don't usually do that. But the other thing you can do is you can speed up the podcast. So some people maybe speak a lot slower than what you might want to listen to. So you can have the software automatically take out the silent gaps if there are any, and then you can also speed it up. And some podcasts, you can even listen to it 2 times the normal speed, which gives you the ability to listen to twice as much in the same amount of time. That's two ways. So Apple Podcasts, Overcast, which is my favorite app, and then most podcasters will have their own website. So, for example, if you go to ChristopherScottShow.com/podcasts, you'll find all of my episodes there. And unlike iTunes, which limits to the last 300 episodes on the website, you can find all of them. The whole library's there. And you can just play that from any browser. You don't have to have any special knowledge. If you want to listen to the Christopher Scott Show and you're doing it from a computer or any other device that has a internet connection, you can just do that from ChristopherScottShow.com/podcasts. Most podcasters are going to have a website. If you find a podcaster, chances are that you can find the website and where they're posting their podcasts at on the internet. You don't need any player or anything. Just go on there. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to sign up for anything. Just go on there and play the podcasts from the user's website. The last way, and not everybody has this available, but I do on my podcast, and that is you can listen on YouTube. So I post all of my, and I know this is a little tricky to see with the lighting here, I post all of my podcast episodes on my YouTube channel, Christopher Scott. The links for that are available on my website, ChristopherScottShow.com, if you're interested. But quite a few other podcasters post their podcasts. A lot of the big names have where there's somebody else that's doing it. I don't know if it's sanctioned or not, but most podcasts today, most popular podcasts you can find on YouTube as well. So I hope that helps you out, gives you a couple reasons why you might want to listen to podcasts and how to do it. It's easy. It's a ton of fun. It's a very worthwhile thing to do. I recommend it for anybody. Make it a great day.